Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 21st of November, 2022. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So another crazy few days since I did the last refuel, of course. You know, times like this where things are volatile, people kind of have a lot of uncertainty, tends to lend itself to craziness. And it's funny because I've been thinking about this, and it's like the ecosystem is at a point where it's basically nothing is really causing fear. It's more apathy, right? Where everyone's just like, okay, get it over with. We know everyone's insolvent and going to go bankrupt. We know everything's going to blow up, right? Whereas I guess even just before the FTX stuff happened, there was still fear from that. And then once the FTX stuff happened, just after, I think there was a bit of fear. But now it's everyone. I mean, there's been so many rumors that everyone is kind of expecting the worst, right? Not expecting anything but the worst, which is funny because that's typically what you see at the end of kind of like not the end of the bear market, but like at the place where the market kind of bottoms. But who knows, right? That's just my general I guess experience with these things, because as I put out a tweet last week where I said, bear markets don't end in fear, they end in apathy, because if there's fear, that means there's still people left to sell, right? That's how I look at it anyway. But anyway, the reason why I bring that up is because I guess like the peak thing, I shouldn't say fear, but like the peak thing that everyone's paying attention to right now is the fallout from Genesis. Now, we don't know the status of Genesis, the lending desk. We don't know if they are actually insolvent, how big the hole is in their balance sheet. We don't know if they're going to declare bankruptcy. It seems unlikely at this point. It seems that they have about $1 billion that they're trying to raise. I've been seeing those, I guess, things floating around. I don't have a source to verify that, but I've seen a few people kind of floating that around. And it seems that they're not able to raise the money to plug that hole, because right now, obviously, everyone is kind of scared to put money forward, obviously, for distressed lenders and things like that. They don't want to get involved in that. But if there's anyone that could pull off, or any company that could pull off a raise of that magnitude, or at least get the money some other way, it would be DCG, or Digital Currency Group, which owns Genesis and also owns Grayscale. Now, the reason why I bring up Grayscale is because they put out a tweet thread over the weekend talking about the GBTC and ETH products, or their products in general that they have that trade on the open market, which are pretty crappy products. Right now, both GBTC and ETH are trading at about a 50% discount to the spot market, which means that one GBTC, well, I mean, they're not one to one. Like, one GBTC is worth like $8.30, but like times that by 1,000 to get the parity with BTC. But it's the same thing. It's just because GBTC is not actual BTC, the new product has a supply that's 1,000 times greater than BTC, but it still kind of tracks. So because if you times that by 1,000, you only get 8,350. That's roughly half, or I guess maybe just under half of what BTC is on the spot market. So that's why we say that it's trading at a almost 50% discount to spot. And this is because there is no way to arb GBTC, which it's kind of a close-ended fund where money goes in, or BTC goes in and it doesn't come out. And the only way it can come out or can trade at fair value again, I mean, there's two ways. The first way is if people bid it up enough and it goes back to fair value, basically goes back to the value of an actual BTC, or it gets converted to an ETF. Now, we don't know if that's going to happen. It seems unlikely for the foreseeable future. So that's got people kind of scared, and they're like, well, is Grayscale actually fully capitalized here? Do they have the BTC that's backing up this fund? Do they have the ETH that's backing up this fund? And they asked Grayscale, hey, can you prove your reserves? Can you prove can you post the addresses publicly so that everyone can see that you actually have the assets backing up that product? And they did a thread, and there was one tweet in their thread where they said that they custody with Coinbase, and Coinbase frequently performs on-chain validation of the custody, but due to security concerns, we being Grayscale, do not make such on-chain wallet information and confirmation information publicly available through a cryptographic proof of reserve or other advanced cryptographic accounting procedure. Now, obviously, this got everyone kind of up in arms, because it's like, well, what is the actual security risk of sharing your wallet? It's already public. It's not like you're sharing a private key. You're literally just sharing a wallet address that if people wanted to try hard enough using something like chain analysis or Nansen, they could potentially track those wallets down. So why not just publish them and kind of quell all these rumors that you don't actually have the funds to back it up? And that's obviously got everyone fired up, and everyone's like, okay, do they actually have the funds now? You know, how bad is this hole? And Barry Silbert, the owner of DCG, which owns Grayscale, has been very silent lately, which obviously isn't instilling much trust in people either. So that seems to be like the second thing that everyone's most worried about. First is Genesis, then there's this Grayscale thing. Now, as I said, like these kind of bottoming of markets tend to, I guess, end in I mean, I said apathy, but there's also a second part of that, which is basically everyone expecting every bad scenario to play out. Like the GBTC and ETH and other Grayscale products could very well be 100% fully, collateralized by the assets that they say they are. They just don't want to reveal those kind of addresses for their own reasons. Now, I don't think it's for security reasons. I think it's because just generally Coinbase doesn't like revealing their addresses, which is fine. I mean, I get that, right? But I personally think that all the funds are there. But at the same time, there has been connections drawn between Grayscale and Genesis, and Grayscale lending out things to Genesis, and there being that hole there. I'm not sure. Like, I'm guessing, I think the same as everyone else, because we don't have clarity here. And as I said, this tweet thread from Grayscale didn't really help at all. But bringing it all together, there is still concerns there. But as I said at the start, I think the fear is really not there, because if there was fear, I think people would be talking about this in a different way. Right now, it's more of people are making fun of it. They're kind of making jokes about it. They're saying, "Oh my God, everything's gonna blow up. Like, did anyone actually make money in crypto? Right? What if all these BTC and ETH gets dumped on the market because these products have to close? You know, these Grayscale products." And it's not really a fear. It's more of a, just let it happen. Whatever, we're ready for it. So it's an apathy, right? That's the kind of sense that I get. Now, obviously, there is the market prices haven't been that great lately. ETH and BTC are coming down again. But again, like that to me doesn't look like fear. It looks more like apathy, where it's on either side of it, right? There's people being apathetic about the bear case and apathetic about the bull case, because everyone's like, oh, what bullish catalyst do we have right now? This is going to take a while to repair. The FTX blow up set crypto back such and such. And again, that's all apathy rather than fear. And that's basically what all of 2019 felt like, I think, when I experienced that, especially for Ethereum. Whereas 2018 was definitely fear, especially when we kind of went sideways for a while and then just nuked another 50%. And then we bottomed out at around whatever it was, $80, and then we went up again, but then we came back down, and I think we went back down to the very low 100s. I don't think we went back to double digits, and at that point, it was pure apathy. It wasn't fear anymore. It was everyone just throwing their hands up, being like, I'm ready for it, whatever, I'm so over it at this point. Like, people had been through over a year's worth of just shitty prices, so at that point, how much fear is left? And that's how I view these things. Now, does that mean that things can't go lower? No, certainly not, and I always say that whenever I talk about these things. But as I said, I think we've moved past the fear stage and we're in the apathy stage now, because as I said, everyone is coming up with their own stories about how everything is going to blow up and everything's going to go bankrupt. And everything's insolvent. Well, in that environment, there can't really be fear if everyone's expecting it. You don't, you're not fearful of something that you expect, right? Or maybe you are, but it's a different kind of fear. It's just, for me, the way I look at it, I don't look at it as an individual basis. It's more of a kind of ecosystem-wide thing, and what I'm seeing, and obviously this is anecdotal, but what I'm seeing between Twitter, between Discord groups that I'm in, between long-term people that I interact with, between the builders as well. I mean, the builders don't really give a shit. They're still building. I mean, I haven't seen the core devs talk about price really at all. I don't think they care. I think whenever they talk about price, it's in the context of, why do you guys care about price? We're still shipping these things, right? So there's all of that, but I take it as an aggregate. I don't just look at one corner of the crypto ecosystem and be like, oh, that's a perfect sign. We're bottoming now, blah, blah, blah. And then also outside of the crypto ecosystem, you have mainstream media, which is very much calling crypto dead again. And that, I mean, it's a meme, but that is one of the most fire bottom signals that I've ever seen, and it's been true for the past 2 cycles, because I remember in 2014 after Gox collapsed, like, everyone was saying crypto was dead. Everyone was saying Bitcoin was dead. Everyone was saying it was going to zero. The experiment has failed. And now the same thing, I think, is true right now, maybe to a lesser extent, because within the Ethereum ecosystem, it's definitely to a much lesser extent, because there's too much to look forward to. And I've gone through this already, I guess, last week and the week before, but that's just my general view on these things. Now, I hope that Grayscale puts out more clarity here. I hope that Genesis is fine and they can find the money that they need to plug any holes that they have. And yeah, I think my fear, which I never really felt the fear too much, but I know other people did, and I think I'm just numb to it at this point. But I'm in like the apathy stage right now, but also in the hope stage, where I'm like, I'm hopeful these companies can pull through. And I'm also hopeful for the future of the Ethereum ecosystem. So it's very hard for me to be actually bearish. And that's not to say the price can't go lower, but just generally, I'm just obviously a long-term bull. But even just looking at the short to medium term, I feel like it's more just apathy, sideways movement than anything else. That's my general sense of things anyway. All right, so speaking of FTX blowups and just general blowups within crypto over the last few months, especially in the CeFi ecosystem, Vitalik put out a blog post over the weekend titled "Having a Safe CEX: Proof of Solvency and Beyond." Now, CEX is spelled CEX, so it's obviously a pun there. So having a safe centralized exchange, which is basically a pretty, it's not that long, but it's a pretty great blog post going over the spectrum of designs that you can actually do to have a centralized exchange be able to prove its solvency, prove its proof of reserves, or at least kind of get closer than where they are today. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I highly recommend reading the blog post yourself, but there is this diagram here, as you can see on my screen, which is the spectrum I was talking about, where on the left-hand side, you have don't be evil. On the right-hand side, you have can't be evil. And the delineation here is basically that on the don't be evil side, you basically have to trust that these centralized exchanges aren't evil. And he's put on here, fully centralized exchange and no controls in place means that you have to trust them not to be evil. And then on the far side, on the right side, you have a can't be evil, which is a fully decentralized exchange. So such as Uniswap. Uniswap is fully decentralized and it actually can't be evil because it can't be changed. It's immutable. And then you have the things in the middle, which are basically the things that Vitalik discusses in his blog post. So, as I said, I highly recommend giving the blog post a read because that'll give you all the context you need around this chart here and around this diagram, I should say. There is a bit of technical stuff in it, a bit of math in it, but you can just gloss over that. You don't actually need to understand it to get the gist of the post. But I think it's timely. And CZ actually put out a tweet saying that Binance is looking into this, and I think Coinbase is actually going to look into this as well. And Vitalik at the top says special thanks to Balaji, Coinbase, Kraken, and Binance. So it seems Coinbase, Kraken, and Binance have discussed with Vitalik how to do this stuff, and it feels like there's more a chance of the centralized exchanges being much more, I guess, much more like don't be evil than they have been, simply because of the fact that now they're in a perfect position, the ones that have survived, to gain a lot of legitimacy and to gain a lot of customers and obviously gain revenue from that. So I think when you look at it from that lens, as I said, I think there's more chance of them doing this than there has been in the past. But yeah, I'll link this post in the YouTube description below if you haven't read it yet. All right, so Marek here from the Nethermind team put out a tweet over the weekend where he said, "I spent my day working on withdrawals testing. Yesterday, our core team unanimously agreed that withdrawals should be the top priority. I checked Twitter and I read that Ethereum core devs don't plan to enable withdrawals." And then he shares a screenshot of Nethermind and Lodestar synced on a multi-client DevNet. So as I've been saying, it's full steam ahead with withdrawals, guys. Like it's going to happen in Shanghai. Timing is a bit difficult right now, but I'm still convinced it's going to happen in the first half of next year. It just depends on if 4844 goes in, and we're nearing the end of November, which was kind of like the soft deadline that was given to 4844 devs to prove that they could get it ready in time for Shanghai. But yeah, anyone who tells you that withdrawals aren't coming, just don't listen to them. Like that's all I can really say. Just don't listen to them because they don't know what they're talking about. Listen to the core devs, go directly to the source, and it seems most, if not all, of the core devs are in unanimous agreement that withdrawals should be the top priority for the next hard fork, which is Shanghai, obviously. All right, so Obol Labs put out an update that I missed last week where they said one of the first adopters of a DVT are liquid staking protocols, with Stakewise, Lido, and others publicly stating their commitment to the tech. Some details on what problems and benefits DVT has for liquid staking, and there's a thread here with a blog post as well. I've talked about DVT before and how it's going to make this the staking ecosystem potentially more decentralized, definitely more secure. And if you want to learn more about that, there's this new blog post that has been put out by Obol in the context of how it works for liquid staking protocols. So a specific entity that's part of the beacon chain here. And in the first tweet, they basically give a summary of, what it is, what it implies for these liquid staking protocols. And basically they said, as the fastest growing segment in the staking ecosystem, it is critical for LSPs to take active steps to reduce operator risk, slashing risk, correlation risk, and stake centralization. So how DVT can help with this is by improving LSP operator effectiveness, so making them more effective operators on the network so that they earn more rewards. Improving operator participation, same kind of deal there, so they can earn more rewards for their users. Reducing correlation risk by diversifying client configurations and geographies, which is obviously a big deal when it comes to client diversity, and allowing LSPs to actually decentralize their stake. So I've spoken before about how Rocket Pool and Stakewise are both trying to be actually decentralized staking providers, but something like a Lido, they're moving towards, or at least saying they're going to move towards a decentralized model, but the problem with that is that they can never be as decentralized as Rocket Pool and Stakewise due to the fact that they have the design. Sorry, the way that they're designed with all these kind of centralized staking providers and these staking entities. It's very different to how Rocket Pool is doing it and how Stakewise V3 is going to do it. But in saying that, it doesn't mean that Obol something like Obol can't help Lido to be more decentralized than it otherwise would have been, which is exactly what the goal is here. So if you're interested in learning more about this, I'll link the blog post in the YouTube description below. All right, a massive announcement from Flashbots over the weekend. They have open sourced the final building block in the suite of software that Flashbots produces, which is their block builder. So the block builder being open sourced means that all these other relayers and all these other people building MEV related stuff can can fork this builder, can modify it, can be more competitive in the MEV boost environment. And all the massive positive externality that comes from this is potentially, and I mean, we're hoping, and it looks like it will materialize as this, is less censorship on the network because we're going to have a much more diverse builder environment. And I've been talking about this before. Obviously, relayers and builders are basically go hand in hand, and it's been getting better over time, but it's obviously still not great in terms of competition. Well, by open sourcing the builder, we're going to have more competition here, which is absolutely awesome to see. And they basically described this here in the little screenshot here that Bert shared, where they said, a competitive, geographically diverse, and transparent builder ecosystem is critical for the health of Ethereum. Flashbots has open sourced our leading builder in order to help this ecosystem grow further. Competition among builders maximizes validators' rewards and improves censorship resistance for users. With Suave, we envision an ecosystem of builders collaboratively building the most profitable block, each contributing a part of a block instead of one entity building the entire block. Open sourcing our builder will accelerate this future and promote competition in the market today. So obviously Suave's still coming from Flashbots there, but that's a nice summary of what they're doing here and what they believe in. So just absolutely awesome to see this. I think Flashbots has gotten a lot of shit in the past and a lot of criticism, which, I mean, some of it's deserved in terms of like what they've been doing with obviously the OFAC censorship on their relay, but I think by open sourcing MEV Boost, by open sourcing their builder, by open sourcing every part of the software that they build, I think that offsets what they're doing with the censorship in terms of if you measure things on a scale and you measure the net bad things that they're doing for the Ethereum ecosystem and the net good things that they're doing, I think the scale is pretty balanced right now. I actually think that you could argue this. Obviously, it's a subjective thing. I think it's quite balanced, but I even think on the net positive side, they're doing more than on the net negative. Obviously, the net negative, I think there's one thing that you could probably place on that side of the scale, and that would be the censorship on their relayer, and that's a big one, right? That weighs a lot. If we're doing like a weight scale, that weighs a lot. And then on the other side, you have all the open source stuff that they've done, which doesn't weigh as much as that, but it weighs a healthy chunk, right? Each part of that weighs a certain amount. And then on top of that, you also just have Flashbots in general creating the MEV boost software to begin with and making it so that MEV was a less toxic market than it would have been otherwise, which could have potentially ended us in a worse position on not just the censorship front, but also on the chain stability front. And that's a big part that a lot of people miss, I think. So that's why I say, to me, it's balanced. Obviously, I would love to see Flashbots not censoring at all, but we've gone through the reasons why they're doing that plenty of times. I'm not going to rehash it. But I think it's balanced right now. Now, and once they release Suave, I think that's a huge. I mean, if it lives up to what they're saying about it, that's a huge weight that can be added to the net positive side, and then it'll probably just offset it completely. And then obviously if we want to kind of get it to 100% on the net positive side, 0% on the net negative side, probably won't ever get there as long as Flashbots runs a censoring relayer, but we're going to get pretty close to it, I think, especially as Flashbots' relayer loses dominance and overall censorship goes down, as much as we hope it will. I think that kind of levels the scales there, so to speak. But very cool to see them open sourcing their builder. As I said, I'll link this in the YouTube description for you to check out. All right. So speaking of, I guess, the censorship, this is another tweet that I put out over the weekend. I said, on average, all sanctioned Tornado Cash transactions will get included on Ethereum in 5 minutes or less, which is faster than your average Bitcoin block. Not a single Tornado Cash transaction has been censored on Ethereum. Anyone telling you otherwise has absolutely no idea what they are talking about. And naturally, this tweet caused a bit of caused a bit of drama. Got a bit of replies from people saying that, you're just making excuses for the censorship. That wasn't the point of this tweet. The point of this tweet is to be as technically accurate as possible. I really don't like the narrative going around that Ethereum is censoring these transactions 100%. Like, no one can get these transactions in, when that is completely wrong. That is not to say that the censorship isn't bad. It is. It's shitty. It goes against everything that we stand for, that we believe in, and we should definitely work to mitigate all of that, and we are working to mitigate all of that. And I think people just saw my tweet here and assumed that I didn't think that was the case, which is dumb, but I guess like people will think whatever they want. But I thought it was just worth reminding you all that even though we're at what we're at, between 70 and 80% of MEV boosted, of the network censoring Tornado Cash transactions, it still means you get them included in 5 minutes or less, because the other 20-30% aren't censoring, and law of probabilities dictates that within 5 minutes you'll get your transaction will have a 99% chance of being included, which obviously is the whole point of a blockchain, right? They're censorship resistant, not censorship proof, and it's still a massive step up over a centralized counterpart. As I've explained before, PayPal can unilaterally censor you. There's only one PayPal, it's the company. They can choose at any time to censor you, and you can't do anything. Whereas 80% of the network right now on Ethereum, or 70-80%, is choosing to censor Tornado Cash transactions, and yet all you have to do is wait like 5 minutes max, or probably like a bit more than 5 minutes max, to still get your transaction your Tornado Cash transaction included. That is amazing to me. I think people underestimate how cool that is, that the network is like that, and you can still get your transaction included even in the face of heavy censorship on the network for those transactions. But as I said, this doesn't mean that this is making excuses. It doesn't mean that it's a good thing. It's just the technically correct way of talking about this, because you guys know that I care about being technically correct. I care about correcting misinformation, and especially when it comes to people using it just to FUD Ethereum, at least be technically correct. It's funny, the censorship stuff to begin with is already ammo enough to tear down Ethereum with. I don't know why they have to go the extra mile and just lie. Just say, 80% or 70% of the network is censoring. This is really shit. This shows why, things like MEV lead to really toxic externalities, and all these sorts of stuff. There's no reason to lie and say that Ethereum is censoring everyone, and is being captured, and try to break down proof of stake because of it, or FUD proof of stake because of it. But that it's just going to work out like that because people love to FUD things and love to just over exaggerate things, especially people that want to see Ethereum fail. And that's always going to be the case. But I think putting out tweets like this is a good reminder for people. All right, so a couple of Uniswap updates. So Hayden Adams from Uniswap here, the founder of Uniswap, said after seeing this tweet, and he's referencing a tweet of someone saying that they can go to Uniswap and find a JPY or yen stablecoin and just buy it in 5 seconds. Hayden said, after seeing this tweet, I compared Uniswap to TransferWise for USD yen conversions. Uniswap has better rates and lower fees on transactions up to $100,000 today, not to mention instant delivery instead of waiting days, weeks for settlement. This is a real world use case that I think a lot of people miss. And I think it's because it's still in the crypto economy. It's not like extra crypto economy. Obviously, with TransferWise, you're getting the fiat, the actual fiat, not the stablecoin that reflects the fiat, so to speak. But still, once this is integrated in the real world and actually working within these companies, like there's no reason TransferWise can't use Uniswap or other DeFi primitives as their backend and just still have their centralized front end, still charge a convenience fee. There's no reason they can't do that. And I've talked about how really the end game for DeFi is just to be neutral financial infrastructure for the world, and hopefully as much of it is decentralized as possible, but then there's going to be things that build on top of it as front ends that are going to be completely centralized. They're going to take their own fee, just like we have today, centralized exchanges that are built on top of these networks. They interact with them, they let you buy and sell the coins, and they take a fee for that privilege. It's the same kind of concept, and I think that's it's going to get there. It's going to take a little while, but I do think it's going to get there eventually. So that's that one. And the second one here was that Uniswap monthly volume on the Polygon POS chain just reached a new all-time high with 10 days to go in November, and this was posted by Sundip. You know what's amazing about the Polygon POS chain? I know it's not a layer 2, obviously, right? It's more like a side chain to Ethereum. It's still EVM. It's still a good old EVM, but they're growing faster than so many other things in crypto, right? The layer 2s are growing as well, and the POS chain has been around longer, but they're growing so much faster than pretty much all the other L1s. I mean, they're pretty much trumped all the alt L1s. Now, what's really cool is that they've signaled publicly that they want to kind of convert the Polygon POS chain to a layer 2. So when they do that, that's going to be bringing an entirely huge ecosystem with them as a layer 2 on Ethereum. And then what are people going to complain about then? We have this massive ecosystem. They're in Ethereum. They're net positive for Ethereum, and everyone's using them and everyone's used to it. It's still EVM and it's all well and good. So I think when you take that into account, that's why I like covering the POS chain, even though it's not a layer 2, because it's definitely adding a lot of net good to Ethereum, and their plan is to convert it to a layer 2 eventually. And I think, as I've mentioned before, they're going to do it once their zkVM stuff matures and just convert it to a zkVM. But it seems like the technical complexity might be at a similar level to what it was for the merge, but it'll probably be easier for them to do it than it is for the merge, because it's going to be less of a coordination issue for Polygon to do this than it was for Ethereum, obviously. But yeah, still really cool to see that the monthly volume is at a new all-time high on Uniswap on the Polygon POS chain. All right, so an update out of the Synthetix ecosystem over the weekend. So this is about Synthetix V3 and their progress on it and where the protocol could be headed in 2023. So you can check out the blog post. I'll link it in the YouTube description. But this covers Synthetix's work within stablecoins, derivatives markets, scaling cross-chain, which is super interesting, and looking forward past that as well. And I mean, Synthetix has been a cross-chain protocol for probably the longest out of anything in DeFi, because they were the first ones on Optimism. They've been working with Optimism for ages. They have a whole ecosystem on there. They definitely want to expand out to other networks, of course, as well. They definitely want to integrate with bridges and things like that, and other projects building on top of them. So it's going to be cool to see how that pans out in the new year, and as well as all the stuff coming with regards to stablecoins and derivatives markets as part of the V3 upgrade. But yeah, you can go give this a read. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. All right, so we have an update from the Starboard team. They are currently working on V2 of Starboard. It will mostly be an upgrade on the UI UX front, and they'll be adding more features and metrics when Starknet's mainnet is officially live, and there's a sneak peek of V2. This looks really cool. It looks similar to, I think, DeFi Llama and Rated Network, and I mean, some of the other dashboards that I've seen in the crypto ecosystem, which is not a bad thing. I mean, I think keeping interfaces uniform across these different metric sites is actually very important, so users don't get lost. And I should have mentioned Starboard's a metrics tracker and I guess an ecosystem tracker for Starknet, and I've talked about them before, but this is just a sneak peek of what V2 looks like here. And there's good old dark mode and light mode. You can connect your wallet, all that good stuff there. So cool to see this from Starboard. Just wanted to highlight that for you guys. Yeah, another tweet that I put out over the weekend, and I'm going to try and get through these rather quickly because I'm coming up on time here. I said most of the garbage in crypto that quote unquote grew in 2021 is being washed out already, or already has been. Meanwhile, the Ethereum ecosystem is building more than it ever has across multiple verticals such as core protocol development, L2s, DeFi, Web3, etc. There's signal in the noise if you know where to look. Now, I want to focus on the first part of the tweet rather than the second because I've already talked about the second a lot. The garbage that I'm referencing here are things like the alt L1s that had stupid amounts of growth because the bull market was stupid, right? And now a lot of that growth has fallen 90+%, not just the token price, but also the things like TVL, general activity, active addresses, fee revenue, all that good stuff, right? That has fallen a lot. But it's not just that. It's also the things that the Ponzi's like Terra, right? That collapsed. It's also a lot of the projects that made absolutely no sense that have collapsed. All the ones that only worked in the bull market because they required new money coming in to work at all. So again, Ponzi's. All the funds and all the shitty CeFi companies that grew are washed out. I mean, if the fact that FTX was basically just grew in the bull market essentially and then collapsed in the bear market, didn't even survive one cycle, is kind of hilarious. But they're gone. Celsius, right? BlockFi, HODLNaut, Voyager, they're all been washed out. And I think a lot of the bad narratives have gone with them. And I actually do have hope that once the next bull market rolls around, there's going to be a lot of people calling out bullshit more than they have in the past, simply because we've had so much of it blow up, and we don't want to see a repeat of that. Now, will people listen to us or not? Remains to be seen, because it remains to be seen like how crazy things get. You know, we could, in a few years, the bull market could come back, and then we could have an even crazier one than we had previously. I don't know. Things can happen rather quickly. No one expected the previous bull market to be as frothy as it was, but I think just looking back, taking stock to see what went crazy in 2021 and what is something no one even talks about today is a good barometer of what's going to survive in the bear market as well. I mean, I have full confidence that Ethereum is going to survive. I have full confidence that a lot of the L2s, or not all of them, but most of them will be fine. DeFi, it depends what you're saying. Like, I think a lot of the core DeFi protocols will be fine and keep thriving. Their tokens, I don't really have a strong opinion there. Web3 stuff, I'm actually getting more and more bullish on as time goes on, because we're having more scale that Web3 can tap into, which enables these use cases. And then everything else around this as well, such as, I guess, like NFTs and stuff that I didn't even mention here, which is still kicking along as well. But that was mostly speculative driven last year too. But NFTs as a concept, as an ecosystem, is fine. It's more of like the individual projects that went crazy that have come down a lot and aren't really worth much these days. All right. Yeah, I mean, I put this tweet out over the weekend. I just wanted to remind you guys that SBF and all his inner circle cronies are total pieces of scammy shit that deserve to rot in prison for the damage they have done. Don't let the mainstream media gaslight you into thinking otherwise. Please, guys, do not let them gaslight you. They're trying to paint a picture of SBF and his inner circle as being basically innocent, as just trying to do better for the world, but failing at it, or whatever other shitty narrative that they're painting. Don't believe it. You know, don't believe their lies, so to speak. Don't let them gaslight you. As I said, and as I've been consistent in saying, SBF and his cronies, they all belong in prison, and I hope they get there eventually for all the damage that they've done. And don't welcome them back with open arms. Same with 3RS Capital. Don't welcome them back at all. Don't welcome any of these people back. Do Kwon, whoever, just ignore them. Let them fade into irrelevancy, because those people are not good actors. And I mean, I think that's obvious, and I think that's obvious to all of you, but worth repeating here. All right, and in the same vein, I mean, Vitalik put out a subtweet of this tweet from Paul Graham today that was saying, and this goes back to what I was saying at the start of their episode, where he was basically saying he heard from someone that there's a systemic risk coming to crypto and it's going to lead to this massive collapse and whatever, and everyone was replying to that, making fun of him, because we're in the apathy stage, because we're in the, yeah, whatever, man, like, who cares, like, bring it on, you know, we're already basically brutalized by this bear, what more damage can be done, right? So everyone everyone made fun of him for that. But on top of that as well, like he basically said that it was a friend who told him this and didn't give any sources or anything. It was literally a throwaway tweet. And Vitalik subtweeted him by saying, you know, I'm hearing through the grapevine that something important is about to happen. Please recognize the fact that my elite social connections to people who are early to know things makes me cool. And please help me validate my self-image of coolness. And that's pretty much what he was doing there. And he actually ended up blocking me after I replied to Paul, kind of saying, you know, just take the L, man. He just blocked me. So whatever, I don't care. There's that one. And last up here is just a shout out that I'm going to be at NFTFest in Melbourne this Wednesday at 4 p.m. Well, I'm going to be there most of the day, but I'm going to be speaking at 4 p.m. about censorship. So I convinced an NFT conference to let me speak about censorship, which is cool. But I'm going to be there. Hope to see a bunch of you there. If you're in Melbourne, it's in St Kilda, I believe. Even if you, I don't know if tickets are still available or not, but I'm going to be there on the Wednesday. It does run on the Thursday as well, but I don't think I'm going to be able to make it to the Thursday day. But Wednesday onwards, I will be there. Of course, I'll be wearing my signature hat, so you'll be able to spot me in a crowd. So do come up and say hi if you're there. But on that note, that's going to be it for today. So thank everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.